It's been a very long time since I've done any kind of motorbike related videos. You know, my channel says China, adventure, bikes and beer, but recently it's been more like China and beer. So let's get some motorbike videos in there, shall we? Right, what you're looking at here is my Galaxy XTR 250cc sort of off-road enduro slash motocrosser type thing. If you want to know more about it, I have a video here. It's my intro video, my reveal when I got the thing. But let me just take you around it quickly. It's a copy of a KTM chassis frame. Sorry. It's got fairly good suspension, as you can see here. Okay, it's actually a very nice little bike. Now, I have since found out that they are available in the States and the UK. I believe they're sold as something called a Pitster Pro. Maybe you want to look that up. Anyway, here we have a original Galaxy. Now, this engine is a very common, it's got a long history behind it. It's called a CB250 engine, I think. And what it is it's basically an old Honda design, which they've just made bigger and made the stroke really long. And it's actually a 223cc. It's not really 250, but it's got plenty of power for what you need. And this bike is actually a fantastic little off-road bike. As you can see, it's got very good suspension, adjustable upside down forks in the front. As you can see here, they're adjustable. You know, it's a solid, everything's solid and works really well. Excuse the wind noise. And I'm going to turn it into a Super Motard, or Supermoto as I prefer to say. Now let me explain a few things about this bike. As you can see, it has very big sort of anodized hubs, which makes it a little difficult. I couldn't just stick any generic Motard wheels, or let's call them Supermoto wheels. I had to get Galaxy Supermoto wheels from the factory. You see how big this hub is in the middle. It's not small, so you know the axle is bigger than most, and also the sprockets wouldn't fit. Now I'm going to take it downstairs into the basement parking. There's like a car wash there, and they've agreed to let me use their tools, because although I have a very big set of tools, I do not have a spanner that's this big. This is like a 27, and the biggest one I've got is a 24. So yeah, let's go and take a look how to make a motard. Oh, and I'm going to tell you all about sprockets and that kind of thing too. Alright, I'm getting her cleaned, because in order to work on these things, you know, it's better if they're clean anyway. Something to you about chains and sprockets. This is a 520 chain. It's a little loose actually. You can identify it by actually looking on the chain itself. It will say on each link, usually says 520. Yeah, a little difficult to see in this light. This is a 520 sprocket. Now that just means the tooth spacing and the thickness of the sprocket, etc. is different from, for instance, a 428, which is your usual sort of thing on a normal China bike anyway. Now the reason why 520 is good, you can see it's a big thick chain, nice and heavy, and more robust for off-roading. But unfortunately that means that you have to have more teeth on the back sprocket, and I'll explain to you why that's important. Here's my Supermoto wheel for the back. However, the sprocket is a 428 sprocket, simply because it has less teeth. How many teeth is this? Usually it says on the sprocket itself. Let's see. I'm not going to sit here counting it, that's for sure. But it says something. 49 tooth. Okay? Yeah, 49 tooth. It says 428, 428, 49 teeth. So that means it's 49 teeth. The less teeth on the back, the smaller the sprocket, the faster you can go, but the less power you have. So I'm going to take the sprocket off, put the 520 on. I'll explain why later. Back tire. Here's the old one. There's quite a big difference in the size, of course. This is for off-roading, so the tire is much bigger. So is the rim. The rim is bigger too. If we take a look at the measurements on the tire, it's an 18-inch. This is 18. This is a 120, which is the width, 90, which is the height, and 18 is the size of the rim. This one is a 140, which is the width, 70 height, 17, which is the size of the rim. There's the bike at the moment. Front's been done. Right, and there she is, completely motardized. So let's take a look at what's different. The ride height is slightly lower, and that's mainly due to the fact that the rear rim is a little smaller, and so is the tire height. The front looks a little strange, I always thought, on Super Motards, but let me just move it for you there. What you'll see is I had to replace the mudguard, because if you keep the off-road mudguard, it's this massive, huge thing and it looks weird. So I've gone and put the Supermoto mudguard on there. I suppose it gives it a slightly more aggressive look. It basically completely changes the handling of the bike, turns it into not a street bike, but you know, something that can be ridden really nice and comfortably on the roads. This back tire is, as you can see, completely bald. I will be replacing it. I just wanted to put the wheels on. Now, I kept the 520 sprocket from the off-road, and I kept the 520 chain. The reason for this is it is a bigger sprocket, and that means it's got more low-end grunt and torque, and that's what I want. Because I want to wheelie on this thing, of course. Why else would you have a Super Motard? And of course, the smaller the sprocket, the faster you will go, but the less oomph and pull away you have. So that's it, guys. That is how you get motarded. Basically change the wheels. You can mess around with your sprockets and chains. Just remember, if you change the rear sprocket, you have to change the front one as well. They have to match up. You know, the tooth pattern has to be 520 or whatever. And that's really it. Another thing. You have to recalibrate your speedometer. Now this has a digital speedometer, which is quite nice. You can see here. And there is actually a button on the back that you can press to switch between motards and off-road. And how it works is it's got a little pickup here. And then there's a magnet here on the disc. And every time it passes the pickup, it sends the signal. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to go and have some fun screeching around on this little Super Motard of mine. Right. Now the beautiful thing about a Supermoto is the following. It has this, it's basically an off-road bike. It is an off-road bike except with street tires. And you see I've been riding, it's filthy. And that enables you to do all sorts of interesting things. You know, places where you could not, for instance, take your lovely sport bike. Let's wait for this dog to get out of the way. Doggy, I'm coming your way. Okay, like you could not do this on your CD. Having a Supermoto really gives you that extra freedom that you just don't have on a normal street bike. Off the beaten path. reason being, you now have a lot of ground clearance, so obstacles such as pavements, steps, whatever comes your way, big potholes, doesn't matter what. Usually you'd be worried about smacking your headers or your exhaust pipe, or damaging your fairings or anything on a very nice sporty street bike. But with these Supermotos, you're basically riding an off-road bike. It has very similar handling characteristics. It's very aggressive. You can, do the whole leaning thing. In fact, if you learn how to corner on a Supermoto properly, there's this thing where you stick your leg out and go around the corners. You'll be competitive against the best street bikes out there. They handle really well, and well, you can see from this footage, you can pretty much go anywhere you like, which is really nice. So, as far as I'm concerned, the Supermoto is one of the most perfectly balanced bikes you can get. I still love my CB, and I still like the idea of having an off-road bike, but this is just such a nice in-betweener, and absolute best thing to get around an urban jungle, chaotic kind of a place like where I live in China. Gives you the ability to explore and go anywhere you like.